Imagine this. A quiet maid just doing her job is suddenly dragged out of a luxurious hotel in front of dozens of staring guests. "I didn't do anything wrong, please." But the manager laughs, mocking her in front of everyone. Tears streaming, dignity shattered, she feels the weight of humiliation until the doors swing open and the hotel owner himself walks in. Every eye turns, the lobby freezes. He looks and then recognizes her, the same maid who once cared for his sick daughter, secretly, without anyone noticing. What happens next changes everything, from humiliation to honor, from powerless to empowered. You won't believe the shocking twist at the end. Welcome to Heroic Stories Hub, the channel where real people do extraordinary things. From acts of bravery to moments of kindness that change lives, we bring stories that inspire, shock, and move you. Subscribe and hit the bell, because every story here will leave you amazed and touched. The marble floor of the hotel lobby gleamed under the chandeliers, reflecting the wealth and luxury of the place. But that beauty masked a shocking scene that made every guest pause. "Get out of here right now," the manager barked, his face red with anger. Rosa froze. The words hit her like a punch. She had spent 3 years quietly working in this hotel, cleaning rooms, making beds, scrubbing floors, always staying out of trouble, and now she was being thrown out, publicly, in front of dozens of guests who had come expecting comfort and elegance, not scandal. I didn't do anything wrong," Rosa whispered, her voice trembling. The manager's face twisted with irritation. He gestured sharply toward the entrance. "Don't argue. Security, escort her out immediately." 2 tall, imposing security guards moved forward, blocking her path. The guests in the lobby began to whisper, their curious eyes following every step. Some smirked, some looked disgusted. "Please, you're making a mistake," Rosa pleaded, her hands clutching her cleaning cloth tightly. A woman in a designer dress scoffed. "Why is she even standing here? She doesn't belong in this lobby." Rosa's heart sank. She lowered her head slightly, trying to avoid the judgmental eyes of the guests, but it only made her feel smaller, humiliated, invisible. "I was only waiting for my supervisor," she explained softly. The manager's laugh, harsh, mocking, echoed through the grand hall. "Waiting for your supervisor? Don't lie to me. You don't belong here." Another guest whispered to her companion, "Honestly, this place is losing standards. Why let anyone roam freely?" Rosa's chest tightened. Her hands were shaking. She wanted to explain, to defend herself, but no one seemed willing to listen. Every word she spoke only seemed to make the manager more irritable. "I've worked here for 3 years," she said quietly. The manager waved his hand dismissively. "Not anymore. You're finished here." A gasp ran through the lobby. Some guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. Others simply returned to sipping their drinks or checking their phones, treating Rosa's humiliation as mere entertainment. The security guards advanced. Rosa took a step back instinctively. "Please, don't do this. I haven't done anything wrong." One of the guards grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, step aside. We're just doing our job." Rosa pulled back, but the grip was firm. She felt the sting of fear and injustice all at once. Her heart pounded. The fluorescent lights of the lobby felt too bright, too exposing. Every eye was on her. Every whisper felt like 1,000 needles. "I'm begging you, please, I just need to see my supervisor, that's all," she said, her voice cracking. The manager smirked, clearly enjoying the scene. "Excuses, always excuses. Don't waste our time. Out." Rosa's mind raced. How could this happen? She had worked quietly, respectfully, always doing her best, yet here she was being treated like a criminal. She glanced at the guests. Some of them were smiling faintly, others looked uncomfortable, but no one stepped forward to help. She felt utterly alone. Her legs shook as the guards tightened their grip. The lobby, with all its opulence and grandeur, suddenly felt suffocating. The luxurious sofas, the sparkling chandeliers, the polished marble, it all mocked her smallness, her helplessness. I've never caused any trouble," Rosa whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "Enough talking," one guard said, his voice low and threatening. They began to walk her toward the doors. Rosa's heart leapt. She looked around desperately. "Please, someone, anyone, I haven't done anything wrong." A man in a business suit glanced up from his phone. He whispered to his companion, "Isn't she just a maid? Let them do their job." Rosa's tears were now flowing freely. She tried to wipe them away with the back of her hand, but the shame burned hotter than the embarrassment. She thought of her son at home waiting for her. The thought made her chest ache. She had to get through this. She had to survive this. She couldn't let anyone see her broken. "Please, I'm begging you, don't do this," she repeated, her voice nearly breaking. The guards ignored her. The manager's eyes glinted with satisfaction, as if he had won some personal victory. Then, just as Rosa was about to be pushed out the doors, something happened that made the lobby fall silent. The massive glass doors swung open and a tall man walked in. His presence was commanding, almost magnetic. Every head turned instinctively, even the manager's face drained of color. It was Daniel Carter, the owner of the hotel. The silence was deafening. No one moved. No one breathed. Daniel Carter was not just wealthy, he carried himself with an air of authority that made people instinctively respectful. He wore a tailored, dark suit, his hair perfectly styled, and his eyes, sharp, piercing, scanned the scene as if nothing escaped his notice. The guards froze mid-step, still holding Rosa's arms. The manager stumbled backward, suddenly aware of his insignificance in the presence of the hotel's owner. "Stop!" Daniel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. The lobby held its collective breath. Rosa's head snapped up. Relief and confusion battled in her chest. She felt hope, fragile but real, for the first time in minutes. The manager stuttered. "Mr. Carter, you're back early?" Daniel's eyes met Rosa's. There was something in his gaze, recognition perhaps, or curiosity. He stepped closer, his every movement measured, commanding, and calm. "Why are my employees dragging a woman out of my hotel?" he asked, his voice low but firm. The manager tried to smile. "Oh, it's nothing serious, sir. Just a disturbance." Rosa wiped her tears as the guards loosened their grip slightly. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably, but her spirit, though battered, still clung to hope. Daniel's gaze swept over the lobby, taking in every whispering guest, every judgmental stare, every mocking smile. The weight of silence hung thick. Rosa swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "I was just waiting for my supervisor, sir." The manager quickly interjected. "She doesn't work here anymore, sir." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Who said that?" The manager hesitated. I did." Daniel's silence was louder than any words. The guests shifted uncomfortably. Even those who had sneered moments before felt the chill of authority in the room. Rosa's heart thudded. She felt exposed, but also, strangely, a spark of hope. Perhaps this man would understand. Perhaps he would see her, really see her, for the first time. Daniel's sharp gaze landed on the manager again. "And why?" he asked calmly, almost too calmly, like a storm ready to break. The manager swallowed. "She was causing discomfort to our VIP guests," he mumbled. A guest nearby nodded. Yes, she looked suspicious. Rosa felt the sting of injustice all over again. She gritted her teeth, trying not to sob, trying to keep her dignity intact. And in that moment, as the lobby fell into a tense silence, Rosa realized she was not alone. The owner of the hotel was here. He had seen everything, and perhaps, just perhaps, things were about to change. "Stop." The word echoed through the lobby like a command from a king. The security guards froze instantly, their hands still lightly gripping Rosa's arms. Their eyes widened as they realized the authority in the man's voice. Even the manager, who had been so confident just seconds ago, stumbled backwards slightly, his face paling. Daniel Carter had arrived. Not just the owner of the hotel, but the man whose presence alone demanded respect. Every guest, every employee turned to watch. The murmurs ceased. The phones that had been recording Rosa's humiliation were now lowered, replaced by stunned, silent gazes. "Mr. Carter, you're back early," the manager stammered, his voice shaking. Daniel's eyes, sharp and unwavering, scanned the lobby. Every detail was noticed: the whispered guests, the mocking smiles, the humiliation on Rosa's face. He took slow, deliberate steps toward the scene. The echo of his shoes on the marble floor seemed to mark the passing of judgment. "Why are my employees dragging a woman out of my hotel?" he asked, his voice low but firm. The manager forced a smile, trying to mask the fear creeping up his spine. "Oh, it's nothing serious, sir. Just a minor disturbance. She's not supposed to be here." Rosa wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her palms were damp, her heart pounding like a drum. She felt small, almost invisible, yet for the first time she clung to a flicker of hope. Maybe he would see her. Maybe he would understand. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Rosa hesitated. Her throat felt tight. "Yes, sir," she whispered, barely audible. The manager quickly jumped in, desperation clear in his voice. "Sir, she doesn't work here anymore." Daniel's head tilted slightly, his gaze piercing. "Who said that?" The manager swallowed hard. I did." Daniel's silence was sharp, almost painful. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Even the guests who earlier mocked Rosa now looked uneasy. The balance of power had shifted in an instant. "And why?" Daniel asked slowly, each word deliberate, calm, yet carrying the weight of a storm about to break. She was causing discomfort to our VIP guests," the manager said, trying to sound reasonable, but his voice trembled. A guest near the bar whispered to their companion, "I think she's dangerous. She just doesn't belong." Rosa felt a shiver run down her spine. Her face flushed with shame, but she straightened, trying to maintain dignity. She couldn't allow herself to crumble. Daniel's eyes now shifted to Rosa, and his expression softened slightly. There was recognition there, a memory searching in his eyes. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Rosa," she replied quietly. "Rosa?" Daniel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Rosa, from the 10th floor housekeeping?" Rosa nodded. Her hands were trembling again, but she tried to meet his eyes. "Yes, sir." The lobby was silent. Everyone watched, waiting, anticipating the next words. Even the mocking guests felt their confidence waver. There was something in Daniel Carter's calm yet powerful presence that made them feel small. "3 years ago, my daughter stayed here. She was sick, bedridden for a week while I traveled for work." His voice softened, almost nostalgic. Rosa's eyes widened. She remembered those days. The little girl with the fever, crying quietly at night, her tiny hands shaking. She had brought her warm soup, a blanket, and sometimes just sat silently by the bed to make the child feel less alone. She had never imagined that the little girl was the owner of the hotel. "She told me there was a maid who would secretly bring her soup every night, someone who stayed with her when she felt alone, someone kind, gentle, and compassionate. That maid was you." Rosa felt her knees weaken slightly. She had never expected recognition, not after years of working quietly, unnoticed. Her lips trembled. I didn't know she was your daughter, sir." Daniel's eyes locked on the manager. And today you tried to throw her out?" The manager stammered. I didn't know, sir. I was just—" "It doesn't matter," Daniel interrupted, his tone sharp, a blade cutting through excuses. The guests in the lobby shifted uncomfortably. The whispers stopped. Some glanced down, suddenly aware of their own judgments and assumptions. Daniel turned back to Rosa. "You've always done your work quietly, without recognition or reward. You've shown integrity and kindness, and that counts far more than luxury or title." Rosa's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different. Tears of relief, of validation, of hope. She had been seen, really seen, for the first time. The manager's face was now pale. His earlier arrogance was gone. He had been exposed, not by yelling or confrontation, but by the calm, undeniable authority of the owner. Daniel's gaze swept across the entire lobby, landing on the guests who had mocked Rosa. "This woman," he said loudly, his voice carrying through the room, "showed more humanity and courage than anyone here today. She did not seek recognition, and yet she cared for someone when they needed it most." The lobby fell silent. Even the most judgmental guests could not find words. Their smirks faded into shame. They had witnessed humiliation turned into honor, injustice transformed into recognition. Daniel then stepped closer to Rosa. "Tell me, how much were you earning here?" he asked gently. Rosa hesitated, embarrassed. "Just enough to support my son, sir," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "I see." He looked back at the manager. "And yet you treated her like a criminal. Do you understand the weight of your actions?" The manager lowered his head. "Yes, sir, I understand." Daniel turned to Rosa again, his tone warmer. "From this moment forward, things will change. You will not be treated like this again. You will have the respect you deserve." Rosa's lips trembled. She could barely speak. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Daniel looked around the lobby one last time, his eyes steady. "Let this be a lesson to everyone here. Never judge someone by their uniform, by their position, or by appearances. Sometimes the quietest person in the room has the biggest heart." The lobby remained silent. The hotel staff, the guests, even the security guards, all of them felt the weight of Daniel's words. The atmosphere had shifted completely. The arrogance of the manager, the judgment of the guests, the scorn of the security guards, all were replaced with awe, respect, and a profound sense of humility. And Rosa, still trembling slightly, felt something she had not felt in years: pride. Quiet, deep, and undeniable pride. She had been recognized, not for her position, not for her wealth or connections, but for her heart, for her kindness, for her courage.
"You owe her an apology." Daniel Carter's words cut through the tense silence of the lobby like a whip. The manager froze mid-step, his mouth opening and closing as if trying to form words. "Sir, in front of the guests?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Yes, right now." Daniel's tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. The guests in the lobby shifted nervously. Some glanced at each other, whispering in disbelief. No one had expected the hotel owner to publicly call out his own manager. The manager swallowed hard, his face pale. Pride and ego battled with fear, and fear was winning. Slowly, with heavy steps, he walked toward Rosa. His shoulders slumped under the weight of humiliation. I apologize for the misunderstanding," he said, his voice stiff, almost robotic. Rosa's lips trembled. She had imagined many outcomes in her head, but this public acknowledgement felt surreal. "It's okay," she replied softly, her voice humble but steady. Daniel didn't stop there. His gaze swept across the two security guards who had held Rosa's arms just moments before. "You also grabbed her like a criminal," he said, disappointment clear in his voice. The guards lowered their heads, shame washing over them. "We're sorry, ma'am," one said quietly. The lobby was completely silent now. Every guest, every employee was paying attention. Even those who had mocked Rosa earlier looked uneasy, their earlier amusement gone. Daniel's words had changed the entire room. "This woman showed kindness to my daughter when she was alone and sick," Daniel continued, his voice louder now, resonating with pride. The guests exchanged glances. Whispers began spreading, but this time they were filled with awe. "I can't believe she's the one who cared for his daughter," one guest murmured. Daniel's eyes returned to Rosa. "Kindness like that," he said, his voice steady and commanding, "is more valuable than luxury rooms, more valuable than expensive suits, more valuable than the applause of the world." Rosa's chest swelled with emotion. She had spent so many years quietly helping others, never expecting recognition or reward. And now, here she was, in the center of a grand hotel lobby, finally seen for who she truly was. Daniel turned toward the manager again. "Do you understand what you did?" he asked. The words were calm, but their weight carried the power of a verdict. The manager stammered, "Yes, sir. I understand." Daniel nodded slowly. "Good. Let this be a lesson. Respect is not earned by position or power. It is earned by action, by character, by heart." Rosa's eyes filled with tears again, but these were tears of relief, of joy, of recognition. She couldn't hold them back. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel smiled gently. "You've done more for this hotel than most could ever imagine, and it's time you were rewarded properly." The manager blinked, confused. "Rewarded, sir?" he asked. "Yes," Daniel said, turning to him with a calm authority that made the manager shrink back. "Rosa will no longer work as a maid." Gasps spread through the lobby. Guests whispered among themselves. Some looked astonished, others skeptical. "Wait, what?" one whispered. The manager's face drained of color. "Then what position will she have?" he asked, his voice barely hiding panic. Daniel's lips curved into a slight smile. "She will supervise the entire housekeeping department." The lobby erupted in murmurs of astonishment. Rosa's jaw dropped. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Her life, which had been quiet, humble, and filled with struggle, had changed in an instant. "Sir, I'm not qualified for that," she said softly, her voice shaking with disbelief. Daniel shook his head. "You are already qualified," he said firmly. "You have proven your character, your dedication, and your courage. That is worth more than any certificate, more than any degree." Rosa's tears flowed freely now. She pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to contain her emotions. She had worked quietly for years, and now she was being recognized not for her uniform, not for her job title, but for her heart. Daniel continued, his voice carrying through the entire lobby. "Let this moment remind everyone here that respect is earned through actions, not appearances. Never judge anyone by the color of their uniform, by the simplicity of their clothes, or by their position in life." The guests looked around, ashamed of their earlier judgments. Some averted their eyes. Others whispered quietly to each other, acknowledging their own misjudgments. Daniel turned back to Rosa. "You have worked tirelessly, unseen and unappreciated, yet you never complained. Your loyalty, your kindness, your courage, those are qualities we should all aspire to." Rosa's cord split. She wanted to thank him, to explain, to express the mixture of shock, relief, and gratitude she felt. Her voice caught in her throat. "I just did what I thought was right," she whispered. Daniel smiled warmly. "And that is why you are here today, recognized not just by me, but by everyone who witnessed what you endured. Today marks a new chapter for you, Rosa." The manager shifted uncomfortably, realizing he had been completely exposed in front of everyone. Even the security guards lowered their heads, understanding that their actions had been wrong. Daniel's eyes swept the room one last time. Let this serve as a lesson to everyone. Kindness and courage matter more than wealth, power, or status. True respect is earned, never assumed. Rosa's heart swelled with emotion. She had spent years quietly helping, never expecting recognition or reward, and now she stood at the center of a grand hotel lobby, tears streaming down her face, receiving validation that went beyond words. The lobby had transformed. Where there had once been judgment and mockery, there was now respect and awe. Guests whispered in disbelief, employees straightened their backs, and the manager remained frozen, a silent reminder that arrogance and ignorance are no match for truth and integrity. Daniel stepped closer to Rosa and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You have shown what true courage looks like," he said softly. "Never forget the value of your heart. That is what matters most in this world." Rosa's tears continued to fall, but they were tears of joy, relief, and triumph. She looked around the lobby, at the shocked guests, the humbled staff, and finally at Daniel Carter, and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with respect. "No, Rosa, thank you for reminding us all what it means to be human." In that moment, the hotel lobby was no longer a place of judgment or mockery. It had become a stage for justice, for recognition, for a lesson that would not be soon forgotten. Rosa, once dismissed and humiliated, had become the most respected person in the room, not for her position, not for wealth, but for her heart, her courage, and her unwavering kindness. And the lesson for everyone there was clear. Respect every person because you never know who they truly are or the impact they have quietly made in the world. Rosa stood tall now, shoulders straight, tears drying on her cheeks. She felt the weight of injustice lift and the warmth of recognition fill her heart. She had survived humiliation, stood strong in the face of injustice, and emerged victorious, not just in title, but in the respect of everyone present. And as Daniel Carter turned and walked toward the elevator, his presence commanding and calm, the lobby remained silent, not in fear, but in awe. The quiet maid, once thrown out and mocked, had now become a symbol of courage, kindness, and the truth that actions speak louder than appearances. Rosa's story would not be forgotten that day. It would echo through the halls of the hotel, a reminder of the power of integrity, the value of kindness, and the truth that sometimes the person you least expect holds the greatest heart. And with that, the grand lobby of the hotel became a place where respect was earned, courage was recognized, and a woman named Rosa finally received the honor she had always deserved.